it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where we take a deep dive into a particular film, and we're getting into 90s Carpenter. Like I talked about on my last episode for They Live, kind of wrapping up the prime of John Carpenter and kind of getting into an interesting time in his career. And this is a
Mhm.
first time watch for me. And I have my pal Adam here joining me to talk about this particular film. Adam, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, not a worry. A pleasure as always.
And for those who haven't tuned in to Welcome to the Wasteland before, we have three segments. We go over some of the coming attractions for the week of this release, which is going to be April 10th. April 14th, I'm getting my dates all mixed up. April 14th, and then we'll get into our feature film, and then we have a couple recommendations for you. But I pointed this out to Adam when we were looking at the releases. This particular Friday is very interesting because there's 5 wide releases coming out in American theaters, which I can't remember the last time that happened on the same day. It might even be before COVID. And we'll get to ones that we're
Seems
most
a
excited
lot.
about, but we got new anime coming out. We have some a new basketball sports film, but we're going a little bit more in the horror-esque route here. But Adam, which one are you most excited about?
Well, sadly, we don't get this released until the 25th of May in Australia, but Renfield,
Mhm.
very keen for Renfield. I mean, Nicolas Cage playing Dracula, and I love Nicholas Hoult as well. So the two Nicks will really intrigue me. So, yeah, and it looks like it's going to be a comedy of some sort. I don't know a lot about it. I just know I'm keen to see it.
Yeah, it looks like some kind of dark comedy approach to things. There's definitely a sense of humor about it, but there definitely seems to be a lot of gore based off of the trailer
Mm.
that I saw. I'm very excited for this 100% because I want to see Nick Cage's Dracula. Like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's enough for me to go see this movie
If it,
and get super excited about it. It's a fun it's a fun thought of getting to being
it's
able
a,
to see that.
yeah.
So
If you
um
can match Gary Oldman's over the topness in Bram Stoker's, like it's going to be just brilliant. It's going to be a delight, I think.
well, there's very few actors that could go as over the top as Nick Cage. Gary
Yeah,
Oldman's one of them. God, I don't
yeah.
know how the screen in a theater would handle having like Nick Cage and Al Pacino on screen at the same time. It's like who's gonna go harder? That
Yeah.
would be an interesting sight to see. Um, I'm also going with a hard film. I think this is supposed to be a straight horror film, but like I can't help but think that this looks kind of campy, and also it's probably going to be terrible, especially since they're not
Mhm.
screening it here or allowing reviews to come out before its release. But I don't know. The Pope's Exorcist has me excited because I want to sit and watch Russell Crowe with a Italian accent try to exorcise demons for a whole entire movie. I just like basically if Russell Crowe did something, I'm excited about that aspect. And I saw this
Yeah.
trailer and I'm
Yeah.
just like, my God, this could be like the biggest trash movie of the year. But I'm still gonna enjoy
Mhm.
watching Russell Crowe in this. And has like Franco Nero's the Pope and Ralph
Okay.
Ineson, aka like the Green Knight and everything, being the voice of this demon coming out of a
Yes.
small child. I'm just like, yep, this is the kind of ridiculous I need. So I'm fully preparing it to being bad, but I can't help but get kind of excited about it. I not gonna
Hopefully, it's a good
lie,
bad.
not gonna lie, I almost picked which I did almost pick Renfield like Mafia Mama just for the fact of being super Italian. Good for Italian movies. Italian centric movies coming out in the US this weekend with Mafia Mama and The Pope's Exorcist. So two very
Mm.
different movies though. Um, but yeah, after I heard Russell Crowe do Greek Zeus in Thor: Love
I
and
was
Thunder,
about
I'm
to
like,
say, yeah,
now I gotta listen to him be Italian. It's gonna be a bunch
yeah.
of fun.
I wonder how
And
many. I wonder how many people he can offend with this one.
oh my god, I didn't realize he's supposed to be in Craven the Hunter until he started talking
Oh
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
this week, and I'm like, well, maybe I'm a little bit more excited to see that now. Um, I'm because I had zero interest in that
One
movie
of
at all.
one of the things I'm really upset about is that we're not going to see a Russell Crowe Jekyll and Hyde movie because he played Dr. Hyde, I think it's Hyde, in The Mummy, which was a terrible movie, but
Yeah,
it ruined that whole franchise. I'd love to have seen Crowe do that. It would have been
oh, I would
amazing.
have loved that. And actually, I
Yeah,
was more excited to see that Mummy movie knowing that Russell Crowe was in it as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde than I was to see Tom Cruise
yeah,
in a Mummy movie.
yeah,
Which, like,
yeah,
way to torpedo a whole entire planned franchise with one movie. That
yep.
must be a record. So,
Tom Cruise's ego gets in the way.
I don't know. It's like that. I don't know that. I don't know how well that dark universe would have worked out, but it
Mm.
the cast seemed potentially interesting. But it's something that will never happen. So there you go. But those are some coming attractions coming your way this weekend. But we are here to talk about 1992's Memoirs of an Invisible Man. And this is from obviously John Carpenter. And after a freak accident, a company executive turns completely invisible, goes on the run, and becomes hunted by a treacherous CIA official whilst trying to cope with his new reality and also apparently fall in love. They leave that part out of the synopsis. But this is directed by John Carpenter based off of a book by H.F. Saint and had three screenwriters. Kind of could feel that. Except one of them was William Goldman. Like,
Yeah,
this man wrote
I didn't
Butch
look into
Cassidy
that.
and the Sundance Kid, All the President's Men, novels with Marathon Man and The Prince's Bride. He wrote this. I wonder who wrote it first and then did touch ups or something like
I'm
that.
getting I'm getting the impression I like this more than you like this.
I don't like. This is such a strange movie, but we're going to talk about it. This is indeed starring
Yeah,
Chevy
yeah.
Chase, who apparently made this a nightmare for John Carpenter, as it appears Chevy Chase makes
It's
most shoots nightmares for everybody. And his love interest, played
shocking.
by Daryl Hannah, and that treacherous CIA agent, Sam Neill. But Adam, what are your general thoughts on Memoirs of an Invisible Man?
Um, it's not without its charm. Like it's yeah,
Mhm.
it's not it's not going to win any awards, but it's definitely not without its charm, and especially for its time. I think the special effects are still quite good. They still kind of
Yeah,
hold up. I mean, they look like they're from their time, but they look quite good. I remember watching this as a teenager and really, really enjoying it because you're a bit more inexperienced with watching movies, and
mhm.
as a teenager, who wouldn't, being the thought of being invisible is kind of a cool thought, right? But then this movie also goes well out of its way to tell you how tough being invisible actually would be, how hard it would be to
Yeah.
live that way. Like it's not wouldn't be an easy thing to achieve. So your general thoughts, I do like this. I mean, I give it 3.5 stars. I think it's worth checking out. But again, it's still hard to get past Chevy Chase being Fletch as well. Like he's still everything he does just kind of even makes me think of Fletch. So yeah, I mean overall I really liked it. So I'll stop talking now.
I it was interesting because my expectations going in, because the only expectations I had of this film was one, I never heard of it before going into doing this John Carpenter deep dive, which I think that was a little concerning to me because like it's John Carpenter. If it was good, I would have heard about it, right? But I also never heard of Prince of
Mm, mm.
Darkness, and I actually really enjoyed that a lot. But
Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
concerning is like, you have to take Rotten Tomatoes with a grain of salt and also realize it's an aggregate thing and not really like a score rating. But like this has a really low tomato meter, which if you
Yeah, it
look at
does.
the film, I felt like it does have its charm. And it's hard not to find some charm from Chevy Chase on screen because like he
Yeah.
is a very
Yeah.
charismatic guy. Like he might be a complete asshole, but like I can't help but say I was extremely sad when he wasn't on Community anymore because
Yeah.
Pierce was
Yeah.
one of my favorite characters because he was so
He was
hilarious
great.
and terrible. But like Chevy Chase has his moments, and I love Sam Neill in this. He is
Yes.
he
Yeah.
has a presence and he's threatening. And there's
He's
the
a good
special
highlight.
effects, like you said, were like I thought they were great. There was moments like some
Mm,
of the moments, obviously, like where he put like he was doing like the makeup thing, and like you could tell it's from 1992, but like how they
yeah. Yeah.
achieved a lot of these things is really impressive. And I think it took somebody like John Carpenter, who has a lot of experience doing genre films and is a veteran director,
Mm,
to make a lot of this work. My biggest like my biggest things against it probably are like narratively, it wasn't the most dynamic or interesting. And it's not gonna lie,
hmm
when it really went full blown romance, I kind of got a little bored,
Yeah.
to be honest.
It gets in the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and because like when he's on the run and when he's being chased, it's thrilling, it's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
just, I don't know if it was a lack of connection between Daryl Hannah and Chevy Chase, but like I don't know, I just didn't buy into this romance, and I felt like it bogged down the film. But I did appreciate a point that you brought up. Like it does really show how complicated it would be to be an invisible person
mm.
and trying to navigate the world. I do have to give it that scene with Taxi with him.
Yeah, with the drunk guy.
Yeah. And pretending
Yeah.
to be him so he could use the taxi. Like those kinds of things. I love that because they felt unique and interesting. Because, up to this
Mm,
point, we've
mm.
definitely seen a variety of different kinds of invisible man stories. Um,
Yeah.
I was interested by the title and then realizing that it was a frame narrative. I guess like that's where they get
Yes.
the title from. I'm like, did this
Yep.
need to be a frame narrative necessarily? I don't know. I don't
It's
think,
based on a novel.
yeah.
I think it's actually based on a novel. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would imagine that like the novels, like a bunch of like diary entries or like memoir entries and stuff like that. But I had a decently good time with this. Like, I don't think this is a bad movie.
Mm,
It's just
mm.
when I'm watching all these John Carpenter films, it just feels like one of his lesser memorable movies, I feel like.
100%. Yeah. 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 Absolutely. It's not as, yeah, it doesn't stand out as much as these other great films. I mean, it is it's that old thing where a director's getting towards the end of his cycle type of
Yeah.
film. Yeah.
Yeah. And from what I can tell, Carpenter did much worse after this. So, especially at the very end, apparently, which I have to be watch what I say because up to this point, I've only seen In the Mouth of Madness. Everything else past this, I
I've
haven't
seen
seen
that.
before. So I'm going to be watching Escape from LA for the first time, Ghosts of Mars for the first time, and I'm like, well, we're going to find out. But
Escape from LA is a trip, man. It's a trip. You just wait for Henry Fonda. It's unbelievable.
But like I wish this film was known more because I do feel like it deserves
Mm,
watch. And it is
I
something
agree.
like if this episode and this show in general, I think one of the things I love most about Welcome to the Wasteland is like, yeah, I get the excuse to rewatch and talk about The Thing and Halloween or
Mm,
Jaws and Jurassic Park and Goodfellas and The Departed. But then I also get to talk about, things like Duel for Steven Spielberg or like that stretch of time in the early 2000s where not a lot of people like remember a lot of those films, or
Mm,
watching some of
mm,
Scorsese's like short films and early documentaries and stuff like that. It's these kinds of things that I enjoy most, getting to like uncover some of these other works. And
yeah,
this had a lot of potential. It was technically really, really sound. John Carpenter did a good job directing it, which is not a surprise because he's a very talented director. It's one of those kinds of things where it's just like some of the pieces didn't work as well for me, but there are some really good pieces here. And just imagining if
yeah,
this was a little streamlined and just Sam Neill chasing after Chevy Chase, like that stuff was great. And I really enjoyed that.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't have much more to add, to be honest. I think you've covered a lot of it. There are a lot of good scenes.
Hmm.
But as you said, especially the ones with Sam Neill when he's hiding out in his office. Maybe that's a good scene where
Yeah.
he discovers him there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
But
particularly good
otherwise,
one.
that is a great scene. But yeah, this could be a short episode. I don't have much more to add. Like I
Hmm.
said, you've covered pretty much everything. Yeah.
I do want to just give a quick shout out to a couple of uh more character actors that I feel like should deserve a little shout out. I love Michael McKean,
Hmm.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
especially his work with Christopher Guest. And like he's a fun character here. Stephen Tobolowsky, who
Yes. Yeah.
there's certain movies where he's just so great, and like I don't think
Yeah.
Groundhog Day would be as great without him just being like, watch out, it's a doozy. Like having those like character actors popping up there in some of the smaller roles. Um, just to summarize, like my big gripe, I feel like if they took out that whole like beach house sequence, that was the place where I'm just like I'm
It
starting
does
to get
bog down.
getting a little bored here. And then it kicked
Yeah, it
back
doesn't.
to the climax again, and then I got back excited about it.
It doesn't actually help narratively, does it? That scene, but in saying that, I still thought that was a really interesting scene because like I said, I think the whole story is really about survival, like him trying to
Yeah.
survive. So I mean, it's kind of important that this is an aspect of it, but like you said, but narratively, yeah, it does bog the film down. Absolutely,
I think probably the thing,
it's a really interesting way to perceive it.
yeah, I guess the main reason why that didn't hit as well with me is like I think it's really the root of it. So I didn't really buy into the romance. I
Mm,
did. That was interesting that he was like watching that guy like a hawk, being like, "You're not going to take advantage of her," and just have this like
yeah,
invisible man
but
specter watching you.
typical, typical sleazy Wall Street guy.
Yep, it's fresh out of the '80s into the early '90s, so fit in
Yeah,
right
yeah,
perfectly well. But
yeah.
like we said, this is a pretty underappreciated, underwatched film out of John Carpenter's filmography. It's worth a watch. Give it a try. I think I wound up. Oh no, I did stream this somewhere. Where did I stream this? I'm trying to double checking real quick, so in case anybody else wants to check this out, because I don't think I had Memoirs of Man.
In Australia, I think the only place you can really get it is iTunes.
Yeah, you could rent it on Apple and Amazon and YouTube, but oh, I watched it on Canopy, which I have access to
Oh,
at
okay,
my local library. So,
right.
and Ryder, where I work, also just got Canopy. So that's really cool. If you have a local library or go to a school and they have a library, check to see if they have Canopy. That opens up a whole thing of awesome movies that you could check out.
Are there commercials in Canopy or commercial free?
Hmm?
I mean, do they have ads? Do they have ads, Canopy?
No, it's
No,
it's
okay.
a it's an education based thing. So I feel like
Yep,
your your library or your school has to buy into it. So I guess that's how they make their
right.
money. So like they don't have to
Yep,
have
yep.
ads. And we reap the benefits. So
Hmm.
there you go. Yeah, because I didn't
Yeah,
have to watch any
yeah,
ads. And this honestly, it's an hour and 39 minutes. Um Prime Carpenter
yeah.
at 90 to 100 minutes. That's a sweet spot, except The Thing. I think The Thing's like the 1 2 hour movie that like I could definitely buy into it being 2 hours. But recommendations. So I think we each have one here. But Adam, what would you like to recommend to everybody?
Something I enjoyed. Don't yeah, I didn't love it, but it's a fascinating story. Is
Mhm.
recently released on Apple TV Plus, Tetris with Taron Egerton, who I'm a big fan of. Taron Egerton,
Yeah.
that dude's super talented. I was kind of a bit hurt when he came out and said, I don't think I'm suited to be the next James Bond." I was like, "Ah, damn!" I would have liked to see him as James Bond, but that's not going to happen, obviously. But Tetris is it's just such a fascinating story about this game, which so much I didn't realize, and actually did some Wikipediaing after I saw the film, and a lot of it's pretty accurate to how stuff went down. Basically, having to go behind the Iron Curtain in Russia and try and win the rights to this game, which was a legal minefield by the sounds of it, because so many people thought they had the rights to distribute it in certain countries and certain platforms, and then yeah, it's just a really fascinating story, and it's got some pretty thrilling moments. There's some car chases, but there's also some political intrigue.
Some eight
Uh,
bit car chases.
yeah, oh yeah, the stylization behind
Yeah.
this film, how they when these cars hit something and then they turn into pixelated. That's fantastic. Like so much of this is really really good, and a
I,
rewatch would probably bump it up.
I kind of wish they did that a little bit more, to be honest. Like
Mm,
really leaned into that because I think that was one of the most fun, interesting things about the film was it knows what time period it's in and tries to embrace you in it with like,
yeah,
especially like the 8 bit chapter cards and stuff like that. And
yeah, yeah.
it's like level one, level two, must face off with the KGB now, and just like all those
Yeah.
different kinds of things. But yeah,
Oh,
I think it's an interesting film. I saw generally I think most people I've seen give it some middle, slightly positive
yeah,
reviews. And like I think it
yeah.
sits comfortably in there and I had a good time with it.
Hmm. Yeah. It's also a good little representation of how the USSR felt as well, because it's kind of at that stage as it's falling. So, and then
Mhm.
you've got these people in the KGB being corrupt and expecting
Yeah.
bribes to get, so there's a bit in there. Like it's a really interesting film, even though there's something about it that holds it back from being brilliant. It's still really, really good. Um, I guess my final thought on it is me being me. There's a series on Netflix called "The Toys That Made Us" and "The Movies That Made Us." I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever seen either of those, but they're great.
I
And
watch
so
all the
I just
movie
thought,
ones.
yeah, they're so good. I don't know how any movie ever gets made, but if you watch those shows, but
Yeah,
I thought
right.
a good alternative title, a good alternative title for this would be "The Games That Made Us," because that's kind of what it is, like how
Yeah.
this game came about. If they
Oh,
made
I would watch
something about
that.
how,
If they came out with another
yeah,
spin-off about video games and stuff like that, I'd be down. I'd be 100% down.
yeah, I just know Donkey Kong or whatever video game that had struggles. But yeah,
Well, Adam, you brought up a perfect segue into my
look
recommendation,
at that.
which is
It was not deliberate either.
which was the Super Mario Brothers movie, which I didn't love this. I'm not coming in here being like, "Oh my God, this is an amazing adaptation." It's a fun time. And my my expectations were tempered because I know it's Illumination. And Illumination does one thing great, making mediocre films that make a crap ton of money. Uh, they know how to make a movie just accessible enough to get so many people in watching it. I am going to focus on the positives of why I'm recommending it. It's fun, it's brisk. Like this 90 minutes go like that. Like you have no time to
Mm,
be bored, to be honest. Um, don't really have any time to breathe either, but it'll be over soon. But the thing is like it's really cool, inventive, fun video game esque action in it. That's a lot of fun. The animation's great. Some of the cast are great. Like Jack Black is just worth the price of admission for this movie, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest, as Bowser, who gets a couple of musical numbers, which is great. And please make sure to stick around into the credits, because then you get one other special moment that pops up too. But, you know, it's a fun, vibrant, cool thing. And if you're really into Mario and Donkey Kong and stuff like that, there's so many little things that you'll pick up that'll just add layers of enjoyment to it. But yeah, so
cool.
It wasn't, it's not like the other Super Mario Brothers movie, which I think unabashedly pissed off every single Mario fan in the world and just slapped the fandom in the face. But yeah, so at least this was a respectful, restrained adaptation of the video game. But those are recommendations. So Adam, thank you so much for coming on for this episode of Welcome to the Wasteland.
Yeah, not a problem. Always a delight.
And would you like to shamelessly plug where people might find you?
Kerbridder on Letterboxd, KERBRIDER, or you can catch my monthly catalogue on SiftPop as well, where I write about classic films from the 20th century.
So old.
Yeah. So old. Man, I found some treats though, going back. I love it. It's old movies, they're the best movies. I can't believe I'm saying that now, you know. But yeah, they really are.
Well, I'm definitely a big fan of films from all across the history of film. So I definitely appreciate your article series, because gotta enjoy those great films. And we'll be talking about some of those.
There's a lot to be learned.
Like this movie that we just talked about. What, 31 years old?
Yeah, geez, that makes you feel makes me feel old anyway. I don't know about you.
I was born in 1991, so I was. It makes me feel not existing.
I was in high school. I guess in American terms, it would have been in middle school in 1991. Oh my goodness!
You know what? I have this conversation with Rowan every time I do my podcast with him, because he'll be like, "I was 3 years."
Is he? Yeah.
Because like he's in college, and I'm just like, I'm over 10 years older than you, and so like,
so he was born in the 2000s, was he?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus! Yeah.
He's like, I saw Cars when I was 4, and I'm like, Cars. I was 16. I was in high school.
When did Cars come out?
2007.
Oh, gee. Cars come out in 2007? Oh, I thought it was earlier than that. But my kids were born in 2007. Wow. Anyway.
Pretty sure it was 2007.
I was 30. Damn. I really like Cars. The first Cars is great.
There you go. And then they made another one. And did they make?
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it, actually.
I thought it was all right. And then they made a series, road trip series with Lightning and Mater for Disney Plus. I thought they had some fun moments in that, but I also found out that Mater's sister is like a fancy car. So, of course it was. But anyway, maybe someday John Lasseter gets picked for this show and we'll talk about Cars. I doubt it. But Adam, thank you again for coming on. And thank all of you out there tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.